Hello, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to Bound to Talk Football. I am your host, Blake Walker. Paul Erridge is next to me. Happy Monday when this is coming out. We're recording this on Sunday. Happy early Halloween. I was not a Halloween kid growing up. Paul, were you a Halloween kid growing up?
Oh yeah, big Halloween guy.
Big Halloween.
Big Halloween guy.
I am, as when this podcast is coming out, I'm in Iowa City calling state volleyball. I'm sure Paul will check in maybe once or twice, check in on how his alumni Ankeny are doing. But yeah, fun week of football, Paul. We had a couple upsets in the playoffs sneak through. We had a massive winning streak go down, an 8-player. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to technically touch on every game. Some of them we're going to talk about a little bit more. But overall, I will say the cold caught some people off guard Friday night. I truly believe that. I think the fact that we haven't really had any cold weather nights, at least the game I was at, Southeast Polk and Prairie, or Linmar, excuse me, you could tell the cold weather was hurting a couple people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it was kind of the first week we've had of like frigid temps. I would say not even like wasn't rainy. Usually we have a rainy week. Like
Yeah.
playoffs, I feel like usually the weather obviously gets worse, but this is just straight wind and like it was windy and then just like trying to think the word term for it, but it's just really cold. It's like frigid. I don't know. It's not like the nice
It
fall
was just
breeze.
kind of
A
the
winter.
wind
It
didn't
was a
help
winter
it, and
cold.
that sounds like the most Midwestern thing to say. The wind didn't help. It wouldn't be that bad if it wasn't for the wind. It was cold. I mean, it was a shock because we weren't in the middle. We were either really hot this fall or warm, and then we were cold. So yeah, it
Mhm.
was weird. It was a weird night. What games did you watch?
I paid attention to Ankeny Johnston. I watched some Dowling, Sioux City East. Obviously, that one got away from Sioux City, so I didn't watch too much of that one. Limar and Sep, I just checked in for like 5 minutes. And then, other than that, I was just score watching every other game.
I was calling Southeast Polk Linmar, and I had Cedar Falls and Kennedy pulled up on my laptop the whole time, and like stayed after the game to finish watching that game. That game was crazy. We'll talk about that here in a second. Let's just jump right into Class 5A, where Ankeny downs Johnston 21-9. The Dragons finished the year at 5-5. Johnston is advancing at 7-3. A year of coulda, woulda, shouldas for Johnston, and I mean that's how I look at it. Luke Anderson, 8 of 11, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. The big highlight of the night was Devin Akers' big touchdown grab to pull away. Caden Hankis is really starting to make a name for himself. 35 carries, 195 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is about the game we expected between these two teams, and Ankeny just gets on top again.
Yep. Grinded out game, close most of the throughout the entire game. Ankeny almost had some turnovers that kind of cost him it. But overall, for Johnson, it just is kind of a season of what happened, really. Like, nothing clicked this year, really. And the SEP game is like their biggest accomplishment. As a loss, you never want to say that was like your biggest accomplishment. Weird season. Had some questions about it, the PK podcast account. And I was diving through some stats, and it really just looks like last year's Johnson team forced, I believe, is 28 turnovers. And this year they only forced, I think, 15. So
And their
huge drop
turnover
in that.
their turnover differential couldn't have been great because they
Yeah,
turned the ball over a lot too.
yeah. And then I did say I didn't watch a bunch of film this season on Johnson, but either Nuss took a step back or like offensive line took a step back. I think Rex Woodley being gone was big. I think he was a little more important than I would have initially thought. With how Jacob Simpson played, he would play great, but I think they need another option. So, and they really don't have a run game. They've never really been that type of team, though.
That's something that I thought about just with Barku in the backfield. They just could never really find something. And then, with Will Nuss next year, that's the big thing. Will Nuss does come back, and he realistically will be one of the top quarterbacks in the class. But, turnovers have got to go down, and he loses his star weapon. So that's another big thing that, Johnson has to really sit down and think, all right, how are we going to play this out? Because when Will Nuss was in trouble, who did he go to? He went to Jacob Simpson if he was ever in trouble. And sometimes that cost him. sometimes it just didn't work out. But he's a gunslinger. There's no doubt about that. He's going to throw interceptions. And sometimes as a quarterback or as a coach, you just need to sit back and be like, all right, he'll throw interceptions and he'll turn the ball over. But you just got to kind of make it work. And yeah, it was just kind of one of those weird seasons for the Dragons. Ankeny advances. They will take on Dowling Catholic, who defeated Sioux City East 45-0. No problems there. Any last thoughts on Ankeny heading forward?
Yeah, just talk about Ankeny because I did just talk about Johnson for like the entire rant there. They've got like a good amount of juniors skill position wise coming back. So they obviously still have this year. Obviously, I'm not going to write that off. But like this is a team that's kind of at first, I mean, they lost their starting quarterback from last year, Jameson Patton last year, a bunch on defense last year, and they just came back and kind of reloaded, which was, as an alumni, I didn't think it was even going to happen. So
New head coach.
That's a huge program win for Ankeny. Like,
yeah, new head
Bauer
coach
for first year is like perfect. This is what you want. Obviously, a lot of people would say perfect winning state champ, but reasonable expectations after losing what they did. This is a really good year. And with Alarme coming back and Hankis and starting quarterback Luke Anderson, like they've got, obviously they lose some guys, but
yeah, they are going to be at the top and near the top. Friend. Should be at least top 4 in the rankings next season to start. So
make it
very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bettendorf gets past Iowa City High 32-21. The Little Hawks could not do it 2 weeks in a row. It's hard to beat a team 2 weeks in a row. Bettendorf's Gavin Barta leads the team, 15 carries, 118 yards, 1 touchdown. Bobby Bacon throws for 306 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bobby Bacon comes back next year, by the way. Very exciting. Really, this game's weird in terms of defense and whatnot. 62 total tackles by Bettendorf, only 17 by Iowa City High. I mean, that's about your game right there.
Yeah, it's for me, I think looking at just what the score was at certain times, Iowa City High let this be kind of a blow-for-blow game to start. And for Bettendorf, I feel like the blueprint's kind of been there. They obviously know because they beat them week 9. The blueprints to jump out on a lead on Bettendorf and try and make them pass the ball because they do not, like, that's just not their offense. They don't pass the ball, and if top clock's burning, they're not going to be able to put points up on the board or do it efficiently. Barta had a great night. They let the run game kind of be efficient. 7.2 yards per carry for Bettendorf is ridiculous. That's huge. But yeah, Iowa City High got caught in a blow-for-blow game and couldn't really match it. Bettendorf, great bounce back year so far. Like I counted them out kind of just after that loss to Kennedy getting dismantled, but now they're advancing over Kennedy. They're in the second round and Kennedy isn't. So
it's a phenomenal matchup for them because they will take on Ankeny Centennial, who goes on the road and finally beats Waukee Northwest, drubs them 35-7. Waukee Northwest scores a garbage time touchdown to really save the blowout. It was Centennial's defense, Paul, which we really haven't talked about a ton this season, but I mean, the offense did its job. 11 of 14, 160 yards, 1 touchdown for Trenton Smith. That's exactly what you asked for. Elijah Porter, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Braden Jackson had a night, 4 catches, 58 yards and a touchdown. He ran for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then it was just Northwest just didn't have offense. 91 passing yards by Sam Johnson. He goes 7 of 28 for just 1 touchdown. Caleb James, their junior running back, only runs for 28 yards on 7 carries. Just a ugly night of football for Waukee Northwest. And Paul, this is the Centennial team this is the one that you're like, okay, this is the dangerous team that can make it to the Dome.
Yep. And I mean, defensively, this is as good of a showing you're probably going to see this year in like a clutch game. Forced 3 turnovers, and then they literally did not allow anything to go. Rushing-wise, held them to 1.8 yards per carry. And passing-wise, not even eclipsing 100 yards, and you were down the entire game. That's amazing job by Centennial. Obviously, we know they have playmakers on offense, 35. We know they can kind of hang that on a lot of teams. But this is an incredible defensive showing. And it's a garbage time touchdown too, 7 in the 4th. Yeah. So they practically were blanking them. I want to go through and look at the stats in the last game. Yep. So the Waukee Northwest averaged like 5 yards per carry last game.
Yeah. Yeah.
300
So,
yards.
I mean, that just
And
shows the type of defense that we saw. So,
yeah, so
heads up play.
Yeah, that's huge for Centennial, man. Stopping the
Yeah.
run's going to be key to winning in the Dome because the teams we know, Dowlings, we've got Southeast Polk. So,
Yeah, it lines up pretty well. So, I'm excited to see how everything shakes out. Waukee defeats Prairie 21-10. Waukee moves to 8-2 on the year. Prairie finishes their season at 5-5. Prairie could not get the run game going. They led after the first quarter 3-0, but 14 points in the second quarter get the job done. It was Grant Gamble who had a nice 27 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, Beckett only had 5 of 10, 79 yards. He really didn't have to pass the ball well. He threw 1 interception. Prairie throws 3 interceptions, which is probably the big difference maker in this game. Waukee's passing game worries me, but nonetheless, it's a great win for Waukee to move on to a quarterfinal matchup to possibly make the Dome.
yeah, it was big. Waukee, 9 TFLs, 2 sacks, and then those turnovers you talked about, that's huge. Really just kind of a closer game offensively for them. I thought offensively they'd be able to move the ball a little bit better. But Gamble did his thing. It was bad weather, so these kind of happen where it's just offense isn't as crazy. 5 yards per carry and 200-plus rushing yards. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. And then Prairie, who we know can run the ball, 2.1 yards per carry. That's the game right there. And they did kind of pass the ball, 92 yards, but threw 3 picks. Obviously not efficient. So that's what you got to do against Prairie, and they did it perfectly. They're moving on to play Valley. So
yeah, and it was a heck of a game. Valley does it again. The 4-5 Valley Tigers go to Pleasant Valley and take down the 8-1 Spartans. Valley moves to 5-5 on the year. Pleasant Valley finishes the year at 8-2. If you're PV, I don't know what you have to say. You just got a bad draw, literally 2 years in a row. I mean, and it's unfortunate how it works. Nothing really jumps off the page for Valley offensively. DeGroat, the sophomore, 118 yards, 28 rushing yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Damon Head, 22 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. I think Valley just played Valley style of football, and PV just hadn't faced anyone like Valley all season.
Yeah, I mean, I know Ramez Naba, the D lineman at Valley, had a good game. He had, I believe, a strip sack, and I mean, this is just what Valley does. I think at this point, they just go to Eastern Iowa and take a team's soul. That's what they do. It's like a yearly thing at this point. Tough for, I mean, at some point, do you think the association thinks about how this has been a matchup for 3 straight years? Like, do we?
Well, so someone had talked about that. Like, does it ever get to the point where they literally will never send a Central Iowa team out east just to make sure that we'll always get one Eastern Iowa team in the Dome? Like, I don't think it'll ever get to that because what's the point? I mean, your goal is to have the 4 best teams in the Dome. Mm-hmm. What if your 4 best teams are Central Iowa teams and then your 6th best team is an Eastern Iowa team? Well, you're not just going to put all 4 together and have to beat up on each other. It's just how it is, man. Like, I think it's just we can't just hold their hand going the rest of the way. And I say they. Eastern Iowa's produced so many great football teams, but it's been a long time. You and I have talked about that. Eastern Iowa hasn't had a football title since City High in 2009, something like that. Mm. It's just how it goes. I mean, they'll get it eventually, but right now we're just in the era of the metro schools, and you can't just go in and say, well, we'll just give them their own side of the bracket. It's like, no, you can't do that. You need the 4 best teams at the Dome. And overall, I think we're doing a good job. I think most of the teams left should have pretty good spots. It's just how the RPI works out. But no, I don't think we need a 6A that leaves off all the Eastern Iowa teams and put all the Metro teams in one class. No, because it's all about size and that'll never happen. But yeah, if you're an Eastern Iowa school and you're PV, you're like, why have we gotten stuck with this 2 years in a row? But here's the thing. You technically have gotten stuck with a team that realistically, statistically, was not as good as you were. You just didn't beat them. You know, it's like the last 2 years they've faced a Valley team that came in with only 5 wins, something like that, 4 or 5 wins. So it's not like they're getting their juggernauts by any means. And Bettendorf's going to have to handle the same thing with Ankeny Centennial this week. So,
yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, but there's a clear gap in talent.
Yes, but I don't think we can just we can just, because there's a gap, say, well, maybe we should do something different. It's like there's going to be gaps everywhere. That's just how it works.
And there will be an Eastern Iowa team at some point that breaks a streak.
It's going to break through.
It's gonna be a special athlete, special team that'll do it. City High, honestly, a couple years ago, that was a really good Eastern Iowa team. Like that team, Sepp didn't blow that team out really by any means. Their defense kind of handled City High, but defensively they stood. So it just comes down to what team's gonna do it. I mean, you can talk about play style too. PB plays like a triple option, don't throw the ball type offense, and sometimes
that's why I think we've seen some success with like Kennedy and City High, the teams that air it out. Let's jump right to that. Cedar Rapids Kennedy falls in the Unidome 30-26. The Tigers do it again. They get over the stigma and beat them the second time. This game was insane. Like I said, I watched most of it. Kennedy was up 19-7 at one point. Cedar Falls comes all the way back and takes it after a late screenplay touchdown that was just beautifully set up. Their defense did just enough. Tate Hermanson, 4 of 11, 118 yards and a touchdown. It was really just Drake Elhaas's day. 30 carries, 174 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 70 receiving yards and a touchdown. This is a heck of a win. I mean, again, another coulda, woulda, shoulda team in Cedar Rapids Kennedy that I think a lot of people had so many high hopes for, and they do. They have such a talented offense. But at the end, their defense is what just could not get the job done late.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Cedar Falls O-line. They're amazing. Jake Peters and Will Tompkins. Those are D1 guys. So Cedar Falls has like a legit O-line that can get it done. Gelhaas obviously is great too. I mean, 6 yards of carry, that's really good. And I mean, Kennedy, we don't have stats yet. So, we don't know about them.
I still think Cedar Falls leaves the Unidome with a pretty good winning streak. I don't know what it is, but I assume that was the last ever game they'll ever play at the Unidome as a home team. They could make the Dome, but as a home team, that is their last game they'll ever play there before they go to their new high school field outside. So very cool for them. Cedar Falls plays Southeast Polk, who takes care of Linmar 49. Where's my score right there? My score is not on here. There it is. 49-9. Easy work for Southeast Polk. I will say, I don't want to speak about it too highly, but Cedar Falls has to get that offense rolling because they don't have an offense that can hang with Southeast Polk right now.
Yeah. It's going to be very hard for them to keep up. That defense is going to have to play out of their minds. They do have guys on defense. Cedar Falls does that can make plays. We know Drew Gerdes and we know Drew Campbell, Jack Campbell's brother. Those are guys that will be able to do it. But
I will say, I think I texted you this on Friday. CJ Phillip did not play in Southeast Polk's game against Linmar. So I don't know his full health status. I think Landon Vanderwerf's going to be just fine at tailback because he's a really good option, but just something to think about. So.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I also want to add, I looked into it. Cedar Falls undefeated at the Dome this year, but they did lose last year against Valley in playoffs. Okay.
So, yeah, I do remember that. So, all righty. Well, your Class 5A, I'll just run through these now. Your team, your games to make the Dome. Cedar Falls will go to Southeast Polk. Ankeny goes to Dowling Catholic, a.k.a. Williams Stadium. I'm not sure why they're not playing at Valley. Valley goes to Waukee, and Ankeny Centennial will head out to Bettendorf to take on the Bulldogs. Winners are headed on to the Unidome. So Paul and I will talk about those games in depth on Thursday, and we'll get that out to you guys in what should be a great one. Let's jump down to class.
Dowling wasn't playing at Valley?
Nope, they're playing at Des Moines East High School.
Oh, they always do that in the playoffs. I wonder if there has to be some
the friendly confines.
Because Valley obviously is in it, but they're not playing at home. So
maybe they got something going on. I don't know. We'll jump down to Class 4A, where Bondurant takes the rematch, 23-6 over the Pella Dutch. Bondurant had one mission: stop Luke Hardman, and they stopped Luke Hardman. He went 10 of 26, 87 yards, and 1 touchdown. It was the backup of Titus Cram, Caleb Moore, who runs for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns on 37 attempts. Bondurant has found their backup running back.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even check the stats. I just saw the game. 300 plus yards and 2 tutties. That's crazy.
They didn't even have to throw the ball. They went 6 for 11 for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. Jordan Ryle did. You don't need Titus Graham.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's insanely impressive. They didn't even need to pass the ball either. They just 7.5 yards a clip. That's
Their
great.
defense won them this game, though. I mean,
Yeah.
3 interceptions against Luke Hardman. He was the factor. And if Luke didn't get going, they were going to have a tough time. And boy, just shout out to Bondurant. That is a huge win. This is a Bondurant team that can go to the Dome.
Yeah, exactly. So great win for Bondurant. I mean, that's ridiculous to do this without 2 best players, but they did it. So congrats. Great job by their defense. 5 total sacks. I don't know if you said that. It's impressive.
Yeah. They will take on Glenwood, who defeats Norwalk 21-0. Nice little low-scoring game here. Caden Anderson, 11 of 18, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kellen Scott, 16 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Pretty standard game. Glenwood throws 2 interceptions. I can tell you right now, Paul, Glenwood gets to host this game, but Glenwood's got to pick it up. I just feel like they've been good the last couple weeks, but again, I just feel like they're not a top 4 dome team right now. Like, I feel like they're really going to have to step up here if they want to beat Bondurant. I know we're not going to talk ahead too much, but, just a thought.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. They did have to play Norwalk in like back-to-back weeks, which is weird. And I'm sure cold kind of affected this one because they're a team that likes to at least throw the ball quite at a pretty good clip. Caden Anderson, pretty good game out of him, 2 tutties, but also 2 picks. So not the greatest, kind of a sloppy one, but got the win. On to the next. Well, they got a big one, but it's winnable, I'd say.
I think it'll be phenomenal.
We're talking about Glenwood in the Dome. That's
crazy.
That's pretty nuts. So
that's a crazy talk. ADM defeats Denison Schleswig 42-0. I'd say Aiden Flora is fully healthy. 7 of 11 for 40 yards in the air. Didn't matter. He runs for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. The defense does their job. I mean, just a flat-out domination game that we all expected. If Aiden Flora is healthy, ADM is going to be just fine.
Yeah, you like my upset pick?
Your 9 over 8 seed, yeah.
Yep. I mean, yeah, Aiden Flora, we all knew if he was going to play, it's going to be probably an ADM win. 28 points hung on Denison in the second quarter. So that's crazy. Obviously got them in a hole. Didn't score anything the first, so they kept it tight, but then it just got away from them. 7.4 yards per carry for ADM. That's good clip, good margin. I don't even want to look at Aiden Flora's yards per carry.
They will take on
13.3. Oh
13.3. Wow. Okay. Wow. They will take on Lewis Central. It's a crime. It's a game in the quarterfinals. Lewis Central defeats Lamar's 42-10. Camden Cross runs for 19 carries, 193 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Paul, it stinks. These 2 teams got to play to go to the Dome. Lewis Central won the first time around, who technically they beat this exact team because Brevendal went down in that game.
Yep.
And Lewis Central hung on 38-31. So they have had to face Aiden Flora. It's just now they get them at home. So, yeah, it just stinks they have to play each other.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous about this Lewis Central team. I think
I was just about to say the same thing. I hate that they have to play ADM, but they look like the most put together team besides Western Dubuque.
Yeah, injuries have dominated this year in this class especially, but this team looks like they can win it all. And it's kind of like it's a Lewis Central. It's like me saying looks like Dowling could win it all or something like that. But
yeah,
like this is a team that started off it was 1-2,
something like that. They beat Harlan and then they lost to Creston and then they
lost to Bondurant.
Yes, maybe.
We're guessing. Probably shouldn't be, but
let me look.
They start balanced. They've got Brady Hetzel is playing great, and Camden Cross drops almost 200 yards and 3 tutties. They got Curtis Whitty on defense. Owen Thomas is like a legit linebacker. they've got a very balanced team. I'd say they're the most balanced team in this class.
I'm telling you, for how crazy this class will be, how much we want to bet it just comes down to Lewis Central Xavier.
I mean, could it, like, realistically, because seeding will, like,
well, so here,
that
let's
work
keep
out?
talking then. Yeah, so let's keep talking through. I just want to quickly run through Pod A. Both these games were pretty well taken care of. Western Dubuque handles Newton 41-2. North Scott gets past Decorah. We get a rematch in Class A Pod A semifinal or quarterfinals. Western Dubuque takes on North Scott. Western Dubuque won that game earlier. Pod D got interesting. Xavier holds off Indianola 17-10. I think you're right. Xavier would probably go into the Dome as a 4 seed. So they play Western Dubuque most likely again.
So
something like that.
Good.
That could happen. Xavier scores 14 unanswered in the fourth quarter to come back and win this ball game. Ronan Thomas goes 11 of 25, 158 yards, 1 touchdown, 48 yards rushing and a touchdown. Ugly, ugly game. Both teams did throw an interception. Let's see. Only 3 tackles for loss for Xavier. That really doesn't help. Just kind of an ugly game. Indianola held their own, though. I mean, that's a great job by the Indians, but Xavier just finds a way at home. And any thoughts on that one? I mean, it's just Xavier. They're finding ways to win games, and they're playing in close games, which I think helps.
Yeah, for me, I would say that it's just kind of come down to this is what Xavier does. They've been a comeback team this year. They just come back in the second half. I know a lot of people say adjustments are big, but I feel like you can't really change that much in a half, especially high school players. So they just find ways to win. They've got good grit. I mean, they've come back down. It was like, who were the teams they beat that were down? Western Dubuque, were they down? I know the big one was Williamsburg.
North Scott. North Scott, they came back.
Yeah, North Scott, they came back. Like, they're just a comeback team. Maybe, I mean, that's scary for a lot of teams because a lot of times in high school football, you get up 20 or even and 17. You're
like, all right, we're done.
We're good, yeah. But this team doesn't let you stop. And the worst feeling in sports is when you can feel a team coming back and you're the team that's getting come back. So,
absolutely. Yeah. They will take on North Polk. They got to head up to Allman. It is going to be a phenomenal game. North Polk holds off Ballard 17-14, not quite the 7-6 game. Ballard scores 14 in the fourth quarter to make this thing close. It was an ugly game, again, on both sides. Only 110 yards of offense on rushing for North Polk, only 123 yards in the air. Ballard, though, barely cracks 100 yards. So North Polk's defense continues to flex its muscles. They are a tough team to go against. It's just if their offense can get rolling like they did in that ADM game, I think North Polk's going to be just fine. It sets up a phenomenal quarterfinal matchup.
Yeah, for me, the big thing here is 4 turnovers for Ballard. Can't get it done there. And then, I mean, you can have turnovers sometimes and make it up for big plays, but they didn't do that either. I mean, below 100 yards, about 1 yard per carry. Like, just won't get it
tough
done.
sledding.
Yeah, it's tough sledding. I mean, at least, like, North Polk rushed for 2.4 yards a carry, but they hung 100 plus on the ground. So they at least, like, got something out of it.
So they must have had pretty good time of possession.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure the tackles here, like, Ballard 62 tackles compared to 32 tackles.
Yeah.
North Polk. So Ballard, for me, it just comes down to offense kind of didn't get it done this year, which sometimes it just happens. But you junior quarterback, so
snuck into the playoffs, so always good to see that.
Oh yeah,
very cool. So your Class 4A matchups: North Scott will go to Western Dubuque. ADM goes to Lewis Central. Bondurant goes to Glenwood. Xavier goes to North Polk. 4 phenomenal football games, absolutely phenomenal. Let's jump down to Class 3A, where Bishop Heelan holds off Clear Lake 22-19. The Crusaders score 22 in the first half and never look back. Clear Lake makes a furious rally, cannot quite come up. Quinn Olson, 18 carries, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kale Stefani and company just didn't have enough to get back to it. And Bishop Heelan, that triple option, is moving on to the state quarterfinals.
Yeah, Quinn Olson have a day. For Clear Lake, they just got down, came back, too little, too late. So lost at home, kind of a weird, like, this is a weird matchup for me because I just saw 8-1 teams. I'm like, this is their season in the first round. Like, they're already like, this is it. That always sucks. But I mean, Clear Lake, we talked about that district, but we'll talk about it obviously some more. But district isn't really living up to that crazy hype yet. They've got
it's just kind of
Harlan's in that district, right?
No, it was Clear Lake, Hampton Dumont, Cal, Algona, Webster City.
Yeah, it's not
so only one team is left, because we'll talk about the other one. Sioux Center will play Bishop Heelan. Sioux Center defeats Algona 28-21. Algona gets up 21-7 at the end of the first quarter and does not score any more. Sioux Center rallies and defeats them. Nobody scores in the fourth quarter. Brody Van Regenmorter, 12 of 22, 203 yards and a touchdown. It was Solomon T, 31 carries, 137 yards and 2 touchdowns is what did it for them. 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss by Sioux Center, and they picked off Alex Minsky 3 times. Game, set, match.
Throwing 2 fumble recoveries.
Okay, so they turned the ball over 5 times.
Yeah, and I don't know how you put up 21 turning over the ball 5 times, but they did that.
They had the greatest first quarter.
And you don't.
Yeah, they had the greatest first quarter ever.
Yeah, sold their
soul.
What
a fun game by some Northwest Iowa teams.
Yeah,
gonna get a good Northwest Iowa matchup here in the state quarterfinals. I think both these teams are deserving for the Dome. Don't get me wrong; it's just cool that they get to get each other. So,
yeah,
we'll take it. Creston holds off Harlan 35-27. Harlan finishes the year at 6-4. They will not be going to the Dome. That streak is over. It was fun while it lasted. It was a fun streak. Greatest show on turf. But Creston gets it done. Creston was up 21-7. Harlan fought back. Cale Turner probably had his worst game of the year, 10 of 20, 184 yards and a touchdown. Brennan Hayes, though, just gets the job done. 27 carries, 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. Creston just keeps finding a way.
Yeah. I'm say it right now. This draw sucked for Creston. Like, that draw sucks. They had to play Harlan again, which was already a crazy game.
Yeah.
And you just had to do it again. You had to rebeat them. They obviously play at Webster City, I believe, up next. I think this game plays dividends. Like, the teams that play have the toughest road. Whatever team comes out of that usually comes out just just at a different level than other teams we see at the Dome all the time. I mean, I hate to throw predictions out, but this could be like Creston could win it all, in my opinion. I think they're like that staple right now. There is some doubt a little bit because they had those close games, but
you want a bad draw? We're going to talk about a bad draw here in a second.
Yeah.
There's
bad draws.
There's a really bad draw here in Class 3A.
Yeah.
We'll start with Creston's opponent, Webster City Downs Nevada. My Cubs, they fell short. 27-7. Webster City is 8-2. This stat line is ridiculous. Keegan Hissler went 1 of 3 for 4 yards, and his only pass was to Jackson Cherry, who leads the team in receiving. Jackson runs for 29 carries, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Nevada just could not get anything rolling. They crack 100, but they almost got to 150, almost. It was just it was an ugly game for the Nevada Cubs. They could not stop the run. Webster City's defense could stop the run. Jackson Cherry, why not? Let him in tackles. We need to see Jackson Cherry at the Dome, but he's got to get through Creston.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, Jackson Cherry, dude, like that. This is ridiculous. This is a one-man. Like, I know this team is good. Webster City's a good team. I'm not taking away that. But this man's a one-man wrecking crew on offense. Like,
so I saw a video of him on KCCI on their, it was Channel 5 News on their nightly blitz or something like that.
Yeah. He
doesn't even look real. Like, he's just huge, and you can't even bring him down. I mean, I know he's a wrestler, but like, oh my gosh, it doesn't even seem fair what he does. So we get a fun Webster City Creston matchup in the quarterfinals.
He's putting up 8-man stats. These are 8-man stats. This is Cam.
The only thing I will say, just quickly talk about Creston and Webster City. Two teams very similar in the running game, but one team can actually really throw the ball,
Yeah.
and one team can't throw the ball. Like literally cannot throw the ball. So I'm not saying I'm giving my pick away, but I think that'll be a fun one. Let's quickly talk about the pod that unfortunately got the rough end of the stick because Mount Vernon takes care of Independence 50-6. Williamsburg defeats Humboldt 23-0. Mount Vernon has to go to Williamsburg, and that's a quarterfinal matchup. These are two teams that made their championship games last year, lost in the championship games in their respective classes. I just wish we could have seen them at the Dome, and it really stinks one of them has to go home.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that sucks for both these teams. Mount Vernon's been on a tear ever since that. What was it? Was it they
Solon.
randomly lost? Yeah, Solon. Not randomly, I guess. That's a good team. But yeah, I mean that sucks for them. Joey Romberg's been playing amazing. That's gonna be like a crazy game.
Insane game.
That's gonna be crazy.
Insane game. It's our
talent.
It's our game of the week, so I can't give my pick. Well, yeah, sure, I'll give my pick. I'd go Mount Vernon. I just think Mount Vernon's playing really good right now, and Williamsburg has been good, but I just think they've been sleeping just a little bit. But we're not picking.
I don't know if I can throw my pick out, but like the QB1 now. I think
it's unbelievable.
Actually, maybe not. Hold on.
I don't know what's going over there.
We got a little package thing going, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a package. Kellen
I like
Cockrell,
it. I like it.
5 for 11, and then Derek Weiskopf 9 for 14. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll take it. Fun quarterfinal matchup. Last couple teams to talk about. West Delaware defeats Assumption in an absolute shootout, 58-45. Brett Yankovic, 16 of 21, 202 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. And then he rushes for 288 yards and 5 touchdowns. Kid runs for 7 touchdowns in a Class 3A playoff game. He has over 500 yards of offense, and he carries West Delaware to a win over a very good Assumption team that you'd think you're like, oh, we scored 45 points. Oh, you won, right? No, we lost. That's just the difference that West Delaware team made.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Right? I mean, now we got to get a post out on this guy.
They had almost
missed this one.
Am I reading it? Did they have 600 yards of offense? Or they're just short? No, they're short. 592 yards of offense.
Or 508 yards. Short by a whopping 8 yards. Yeah.
Imagine putting up 509. Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, they'll play Solon, who takes care of Fort Madison 50-7. So your 3A playoff matchups. Webster City goes to Creston. West Delaware goes to Solon. Mount Vernon goes to Williamsburg. Bishop Heelan goes to Sioux Center. Wow, what a fun class. Are you kidding me? All right, running through a couple more. Class 2A, unfortunately, was pretty straightforward. So I think we're going to swing through this one pretty easily. What?
I didn't realize how many blanks there are.
Yeah, it was a rough round. Kemper Catholic takes care of Clarinda 43-8. They will take on Central Lyon, who blanks Roland Story 49-0. Mediapolis takes care of Comanche 27-0. They will take on Monticello, who defeats Jessup 45-0. Shout out Preston Reeves, the all-time leader now in passing and rushing yards, passing Hunter Deckers, which I can tell you right now, for someone that experienced the Hunter Deckers thing when he was in high school, and you thought once Hunter did it, you're like, okay, nobody's passing this guy. Like, come on. But now more athletes are starting to do it. So I hope your record stays intact, Preston, but there's some really good guys out there. So that sets up Monticello will take on Mediapolis. Van Meter cruises over Union 56-0. PCM defeats Mid Prairie 36-0. Van Meter has to go to PCM because of the alphabet thingy. So that's fun.
Well,
I feel bad. I feel bad for Van Meter, but they do have to go to PCMs to go to the Dome. So very fun. And then West Lyon does have a pretty interesting matchup with Western Christian. The Wolfpack actually rallied a little bit late. West Lyon scores a late touchdown. Tate Hauf, 23 carries, 183 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Good win for West Lyon. They will take on Spirit Lake, who runs through New Hampton 48-6. That West Lyon Spirit Lake matchup is going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, first round, wash. So next round is going to be crazy. That's my prediction.
I wonder how the seeding would work out because I assume Central Lyon would get the 1 seed going into the Dome. Van Meter would be the 2. And then I assume West Lyon would be the 3. Monticello would be the 4. Something like that. That sounds about right.
If the favorites win, yeah. Sounds right.
Yes. So, yeah, Class 2A.
Central Lyon game.
Yeah, everybody took care of business in Class 2A, safe to say. Let's jump down to 1A. Sumner Fredericksburg defeats Emmetsburg 9-7. You heard that right. 9-7. 9-1 on the season goes Sumner Fredericksburg. Emmetsburg drops their season at 7-3. This was a ugly football game. Tatum Nuss, 10 of 14, 125 yards and 0 touchdowns. Remember that Sumner Fredericksburg doesn't have their quarterback, Davis Van Sickle. So they had to really try a couple different things here on offense. Tatum Nuss actually led the team in rushing too, 9 carries for 54 yards. It was a safety by the Cougars that won in this game. Ooh, man, what a game. What a game.
Terrible way to lose. Yeah, just a ridiculous game. 5 sacks, 7 TFLs for that defense that we know is really good, and they just carried them to a chance at the Dome, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So they will take on Columbus Catholic, who rallies from behind to defeat South Hamilton's 35-24. South Hamilton led 16-0 at the end of the first quarter. Columbus Catholic comes all the way back. How about this draw for Columbus Catholic? I mean, they've been consistent. They're 8-2 on the season, but they rally to defeat South Hamilton. And now they're going to get a Sumner Fredericksburg team who has shown really no offense in the last couple of weeks. I mean, Columbus Catholic, you'll take it.
Yeah, you'll take it. Obviously, you can't control that. You just play.
Yeah.
Play. No stats for Columbus. That's sad.
Yeah.
Want to playoff game? Get your stats.
Mysterious team. We just have no idea. Weird. In Pod B, yeah. In Underwood defeats AHSTW 42-0. No surprises there. OABCIG takes down Trainer 35-14. How about this Bryson Kolar kid? 16 of 36, 216 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, 121 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. Very, very solid game. 3 interceptions by Trainer is what cost the Cardinals in this one.
Yep. I mean, Jack Sajine also getting a tutty in this one.
Great game.
Hate to just play the
Cooper
name
was
game.
at the game. I did see that. Cooper was at the game.
Mr. Fair Catch.
Yep.
So good job, OABCIG.
Heck of a game.
Bryson Kohler, watch out. That kid's only a junior too.
Yeah. Underwood gets OABCIG. I mean, the Falcons made the Dome last year, and it was kind of a surprise, so maybe they could do it again. Mm-hmm. Pod D, Regina gets past Wilton for the second time, 33-18. Owen Hassel, 19 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns, but just not enough. Wilton will be back. Their quarterback's a junior. Their leading wide receiver is a junior, and Owen Hassel's a junior. Gentry Dumont does enough. 14 of 26, 229 yards, 1 touchdown. William Atchison, 11 carries, 107 yards, and 3 touchdowns for him. That was the big difference maker in this one. Also, 1 interception by Wilton on offense also cost him. So, good win for Regina. Looking like they could set themselves up well, but they play a juggernaut in MFL Marmac at 21-0 win over West Branch. Quinn McGow, 14 carries, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. Boy, this was an ugly game for MFL Marmac, but 231 rushing yards gets the job done.
Yeah, and then, they held him to 2.2 yards per carry. Defense put up 6 TFLs, 2 fumble recoveries along with that. So, kind of a sloppy game, but defensively they did their thing, which we'll just chalk it up to weather, I guess. Weather.
Yeah.
Sure. But, they got a chance at the Dome. Was there one lone loss? It was like, I remember, but I don't, apparently.
It wasn't Denver.
Did they play?
Was it Dike New Hartford?
Yeah, did they play Dike New Hartford? I think they did. I think that's
click on their team. I'm on the app.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, it was
Dike. Wait, no, they beat Dike. It was Sumner.
Oh my gosh, it was Sumner Fredericksburg. Oh, okay.
Was that with their quarterback? They only put up 13.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah. It was an ugly game. Yeah, that's how it goes. Speaking of Dyke New Hartford upsets Sigourney Kyoto 28-18. I think anyone knew football knew that Dyke was the better team. Dyke New Hartford was the better team. Excuse me, sorry. This was a pretty straightforward game, and they had to find their offense, and they did. This is all I say about Dyke New Hartford. If they find their offense, they're going to be just fine. Colin Meester goes 7 of 8, 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nate Borcherding, the junior, 13 carries, 149 yards and 1 touchdown. Noah Borcherding, same guy, sorry, 13 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. Sigourney Kyoto tried to pass the ball, and it bit him. 2 interceptions, but 2 touchdown passes. This Dyke New Hartford defense is just very good.
Yeah, they had 2 picks. I mean, they just don't let you score, and if the offense is putting up 28 even, that's enough.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be a really good offense to put up 20-plus on Dyke New Hartford. So,
yeah, Grundy Center.
Who do they have to go?
Grundy Center. Ooh. Yeah. So Grundy Center pulls away late to defeat Pella Christian. This game got close a little bit, and then Grundy Center pulled away. If you remember, the very first game of the year, Grundy Center beat Dyke New Hartford 7-6. So yeah. I don't know, man. Grundy's got to be careful. This is going to be a really good game here in Pot A.
That is terrifying.
That is the last team you wanted to see.
I know they don't think that probably. They're probably like, we're going to destroy them, but that is terrifying.
It's a tough break. We'll go to Class A. ACGC takes care of Linville Sully 29-8. Just a tough break for Linville Sully. Injuries derailed that team's season, but a good season nonetheless. ACGC is 10-0. They just keep finding ways to win football games. They will take on Madrid, who defeats Central Decatur 42-0. That is going to be all-time cinema. Madrid versus ACGC.
Yeah. Wicker versus, does ACGC have like a guy? I know Wicker on Madrid.
ACGC has the
Mike
South.
Fuller?
Jathan South. Or Mike Fuller. I guess Jathan South and Mike Fuller, both very talented.
Yeah. Gotcha. So.
Boy, 1 passing yard. Or 2 passing yards for ACGC. How about that? Don't need to get fancy.
They are Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. Logan Magnolia takes down Akron Westfield 22-16. Evan Rodden, 29 carries, 150 yards, and 1 touchdown. No real other stats in this game to check on. The stats are completely broken on this game because it says both teams scored all their points in the fourth quarter. I know that didn't happen. So good win for Logan Magnolia. They will take on Woodbury Central, who, Paul, we got to talk about it, defeats MMCRU 35-28. Drew Kluender, 18 of 21, 273 yards and 5 touchdowns. But this thing had a little bit of controversy at the end of this football game. If you go on Twitter, or I think IA Sports posted it as well, MMCRU was driving. They threw a touchdown pass or threw a pass into the corner of the end zone. The kid caught it, came down with it, had a foot in bounds, maybe had 2 feet in bounds, hits the ground, and then the official close to the camera doesn't know what to do. He just kind of shrugs and he says, I don't know what to call. And then the other guy comes over, talks to him a little bit, and they say he didn't catch it. If you go back, it's kind of a split thing. If you go on social media, it's hard to tell because the camera wasn't amazing quality.
It's not iPhone camera.
Yeah, iPhone camera. Personally, I've seen 2 sides of the story. I've seen, yes, I think he indeed had his feet in bounds, but some people say that ball bounces just a little bit. Now, I will say, if the ball bounced just a little bit, the official has to make the call. The official just had to make a call right there. But it's a tough way to lose for MMCR.
Yeah.
Still would have had to go into overtime, but still.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not one of those things where you just win. It wasn't a game winner, walk-off touchdown. That would have been even worse. Sucks, though, that after season kind of come down to a call. That was
it is, and I don't want to go after the officials because I know the official numbers are so low, and these situations in the aftermath are why people don't want to become officials. But in the moment, that's a very, very tough call to make. It's a very tough call to make. My 2 cents, I think he was in bounds. I literally cannot tell if he hung on the ball or not. So Yeah, it sucks. For all the people that say this is why we need replay, it's never coming. So shut up. It's literally never coming. If you think replay is coming to Iowa high school football, you're delusional because there is no way it could ever happen. So get that out of your mind. This is just football. I mean, this just happens. Games happen and are decided like this, and that's just kind of how it goes. So take it as you will. West Hancock rolls over Starmont 49-10. Here's the West Hancock team we are expecting to show up. They get a big win over Starmont, and they will take on the winner of Wapsie Valley, Maquoketa Valley. Wapsie Valley takes down Maquoketa Valley 26-0. Wapsie Valley's only loss is to Denver on the season. And the last one, St. Ansgar downs Lake Mills 33-0, and East Buchanan takes down previously undefeated Lisbon 38-7. Just kind of a perfectly set up game. Lisbon only throws for 2 yards, but they rush for 226 yards thanks to Tanner Thurn. But yeah, just not the game that you want to see by Lisbon.
Yeah, I mean, chalk it up to just bad 2 fumbles. Oh, wait.
5.5 tackles. Yeah, 5.5 tackles for loss for East Buchanan.
Lisbon had 2 fumbles, though.
Jeez. Yeah.
Like recoveries, so they got turnovers.
It's a weird game statistically because nothing jumps off the page for East Buchanan.
Nothing is. I mean, Tanner Thurn obviously jumps off 200 plus 2 tutties, but
a win's a win. Yeah. And East Buchanan will take on St. Ansgar in the quarterfinal round. All right, Paul, one more. We'll go to Class 8 player, and I messed up my app. There we go. Class 8 player. Lennox downs Audubon 33-8. Gabe Funk does a pretty good job. 3 of 5, 43 yards and a touchdown, 88 yards rushing and a touchdown. Jordan Martin England, the junior, 15 carries, 166 yards and a touchdown. Audubon is held to just 151 yards rushing, while Lennox has 335 yards on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a all-around effort rushing the game. They had 3 guys above 50 yards and 3 guys a touchdown. So great. They will take on
Bedford, who they did play earlier this year, and Bedford won.
Really good game.
Bedford had a little bit of a scare. They were down 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, and then we're down 14-8 at halftime, but they scored 20 in the third, 14 in the sixth to pull away and defeat Xeria EHK 44-28. Garrison Motzinger, 21 carries, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. How about Cal Peterman? 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a fumble recovery on the defensive side of the ball. I'd be a little scared if I was Bedford. Got to start a little bit quicker, but sets up pretty good quarterfinal matchup between 2 teams that we've already seen.
Yeah, I mean, sucks for them. They have to play each other again, or not for Lennox. Lennox wants that, but Bedford, you're a little nervous, but they know they're good, so they're not freaking out. Probably.
We don't have any stats for this one, but we'll go to the next pod. Don Bosco defeats Waco 28-20. Don Bosco scores 14 in the fourth quarter to rally and defeat the Warriors. Again, we don't have any stats besides they had an interception, and that's it. That's all we know. They had 1 interception. So good for the Dons getting the win over the former Dome team. In Waco, they will take on Winfield Mount Union, who defeats Moravia 34-6. Should be a good game. The Dons are starting to pick it up at the right time. Pod C, Cam wins against West Bend Mallard in a wild game. Cam scores 14 unanswered to rally and defeat the Wolverines 36-34. Chase Speaker, have yourself a day, kid. 15 of 26, 238 yards and 2 touchdowns, 105 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Cam is back for another chance at the Dome.
Yep. I mean, Speaker gets 5 tutties, 300 plus yards. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Crazy game, though. West Bend Mallard was up 14, then only put up 6 in the second half. Crazy game.
Insane game. They will get the winner of the shocker. Bishop Garrigan defeats Remsen St. Mary's 21-18. Remsen's, it's got to be around 23, 24, 25 game winning streak. It's tied for the longest in the state. it is gone. Bishop Garrigan downs the Hawks 21-18, scores 14 in the fourth quarter. Not even a crazy game statistically. Caden Rothler, 21 carries, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Bishop Garrigan only throws for 38 passing yards the entire game. They don't force an interception. They don't force a fumble. Actually, there's no other stats on defense, so we actually don't know that. But good for the Golden Bears, man. That's a heck of a win. I've had my doubts about Remsen all year. I still thought they were a phenomenal team, but it just felt like they weren't quite the Remsen that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this game was played at Bishop Garrigan.
Yeah, another one of those weird ones.
How does that work?
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna go
rules and stuff. But congrats to Bishop Garrigan. That's big. I mean, snapping a win streak like that is crazy. Yeah, RSM. I mean, I obviously was pretty high on them, but they have shown times this year it's just like shaky. That's Harrison 17-0. Like they don't. There was never
my dome picks are still alive for Class 8 player because I think I had Winfield, Mount Union, Bedford, Cam, and Gladrick Rhinebeck. So
I'm pretty sure I definitely had this team.
You had Remsen. I know you had Remsen.
Boyer Valley that game 12-7.
Yeah, there were just signs like you're like, okay, they're good, but normally Remsen would be blowing guys out. Yeah. So
dome team good is a different type of.
Yes, absolutely. And then in Pod D, everyone pretty much takes care of business. Clarksville defeats Iowa Valley 50-8. Gladrick Rhinebeck takes care of Central City better than I thought they would. 36-12. Isaac Clark, 14 of 23, 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. Gladrick Rhinebeck doesn't seem like an 8-player team because they have a good balance. Like I feel like they can run the ball a little bit, they can pass the ball a little bit. They're not reliable on just one thing.
Yeah, I mean, Hudson Clark had a great game, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns, throwing 9 tackles, too. They're just a balanced team, which is obviously not something you see a bunch in 8-man, but that's deadly, I feel like. With 8 players on the field and you're balanced, I feel like that puts a lot of stress on the defense, and they force offenses to have to score. Like, there's no – like, they have a good defense, too, like a really good 8-man defense. So,
well, and – the thing is, we get a very fun rematch. As Gladrick Rhinebeck will go right back to where they lost their only game this year and take on Clarksville. Clarksville hung on in a very close, wild game. Can they do it again? So your 8-player matchups, Winfield Mount Union takes on Don Bosco. Lennox heads to Bedford. Cam goes to Bishop Garrigan. And Gladrick Rhinebeck goes to Clarksville. I need to look at our games of the week, which unfortunately I did not send to Jack. And Jack said he's away from his computer for a couple days. So you might have to be doing that, or I might have to be doing that. Actually, I can just do it. I can do it. Anyway, so our games of the week are as follows. Our 5A game of the week, Valley versus Waukee. 4A, Xavier versus North Polk. 3A, Mount Vernon versus Williamsburg. 2A, West Lyon, Spirit Lake. Class 1A, Regina, MFL Marmac. Class A, Madrid versus ACGC. 8-player Cam versus Bishop Garrigan, and our fan favorite game of the week is Creston versus Webster City. So, it's going to be a fun week. State volleyball's this week. Keep an eye out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook for your coverage of state volleyball, and then we'll be back on it Friday night for who's punching their ticket to the Unidome in 2 weeks. Next week, this week, 2 weeks, whatever. Going to be a fun one. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We appreciate you all. He's Paul Arridge. I'm Blake Walker. I'm about to sneeze. Have a good night, everybody. See everyone later.